There's a certain kind of person who finishes a conversation and spends the next 3 hours replaying it in their head. Not because something went wrong, just because their mind kept going after everyone else's stopped. They notice things in rooms that other people walk past entirely. The way someone's smile didn't quite reach their eyes. The logical gap in an argument that seemed to satisfy everyone else. The word that was almost right but wasn't quite. They don't bring it up usually. They've learned not to. But they noticed. If any part of that sounds familiar, it's not coincidence that you're here. People who live this way are often described in a particular set of terms: intense, overthinking, difficult to read, hard to connect with. Sometimes they're called too much. Sometimes not enough. Rarely are they understood for what's actually happening beneath the surface. And what's actually happening is a great deal more interesting than most people realize. Because this isn't a personality quirk. It isn't a social defect. It's something closer to an entirely different relationship with reality itself. And it has roots deep enough to reach back to early childhood, to the nervous system, to the way certain brains are structurally built to process the world. This is what's actually going on with people who carry an extremely high IQ. The first thing to understand is that high intelligence, at its neurological core, isn't really about knowing more. It's about processing differently. Research out of institutions, including the University of New Mexico, found that people with higher IQ scores tend to show greater neural efficiency. Their brains accomplish more with less metabolic effort during routine tasks, but shift into a state of dramatically heightened activation when engaged with something complex or ambiguous. What that means in lived experience is that simple, straightforward environments feel oddly exhausting. Understimulation in a highly complex mind doesn't feel like rest. It feels like noise. The brain is essentially running its full architecture on a task that only requires a fraction of it. The rest keeps looking for something to engage with, and so it turns inward. It notices. It questions. It makes connections between things that weren't meant to be connected. Not by choice, but because that's the natural state of a system built for depth, operating in a world that often only asks for surface. And here is where the misunderstanding almost always lives. Because a child who does this, who questions the teacher's premise, who finds the worksheet too simple to care about, who feels bored in a way that looks, from the outside, like disruption or disobedience, that child rarely gets told, "Your mind is working unusually hard right now, and it needs something worthy of it." More often, they get told to sit still, to stop asking so many questions, to focus. What that does to the nervous system is quiet and significant. The message received is not just stop the behavior. The message received is the way your mind works is a problem. Over years, this becomes a kind of internalized tension, an awareness that how you think doesn't quite match what the world rewards, and a learned habit of masking it, managing it, shrinking it in certain social spaces to avoid the friction. This is why so many highly intelligent adults describe a persistent sense of not quite belonging anywhere. Not in every room, not entirely. There's a part of them that feels always slightly outside of things, watching the machinery of social interaction with a mixture of curiosity and weariness, able to participate but never fully disappearing into it the way others seem to. It's worth saying clearly, this doesn't make someone better than anyone else, and it doesn't make the people in those rooms wrong for being different. It simply means that certain minds are calibrated in a way that puts them slightly out of phase with social environments built for a different kind of processing. Neither is a mistake. Both are human. But here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. The very thing that creates that sense of distance, the relentless pattern recognition, the inability to stop analyzing, the constant awareness of layers beneath the surface, is also the source of something quite rare. Because when a mind like this turns its full attention towards something it genuinely cares about, the depth of engagement it can reach is extraordinary. Not just productive, not just smart, genuinely extraordinary. The psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who spent decades studying peak human performance, found that the capacity for deep, absorbed, intrinsically motivated focus was one of the clearest predictors of meaningful creative and intellectual contribution. Highly intelligent people, When they find their current, the thing that activates that full neural architecture can sustain levels of engagement that others simply cannot access. The same intensity that makes casual environments feel draining becomes, in the right context, a superpower that looks effortless from the outside. But there is a cost to this, and it would be dishonest not to name it. The mind that never fully switches off also never fully rests. The internal narrator is always running. The self-monitoring never sleeps. And because the pattern recognition that reads the world so accurately also reads the self, highly intelligent people are often among the harshest critics of their own thinking, catching their own errors, questioning their own conclusions, aware that they might be wrong in ways that others haven't even thought to wonder about. Intellectual humility, taken to an extreme, can become a quiet form of paralysis. This is the paradox that sits at the center of very high intelligence. The same capacity that allows someone to see further also forces them to see more clearly all the ways they still cannot see far enough. And yet, the mind that questions itself is a mind that can be trusted. Not blindly, not naively, but with a kind of structural integrity that comes from having stress-tested its own assumptions. The person who has spent years quietly doubting their own certainties is, in a strange way, one of the most reliable minds in the room. Not the loudest, not the most confident sounding, but often the most careful, the most honest, the most genuinely interested in what's actually true rather than what's comfortable. If you've carried this way of being through life, you likely know the weight of it. The nights your mind wouldn't stop even when you needed it to. The conversations where you felt the loneliness of seeing something others didn't and deciding not to say it. The quiet exhaustion of always operating in the space between what people mean and what they say. None of that means something is wrong with you. It means you are wired for depth in a world that often only asks for speed. And that is a tension worth sitting with, not fixing. There's something else beneath all of this. Something that goes even deeper into how minds like this form relationships with other people and with themselves. If any of this has resonated, that part is worth exploring too. Well, dear viewers, that's the video we have for you today. We hope you have enjoyed it, and know by now that our channel is full of inspiring videos. If you like our content, please consider subscribing to our channel if you haven't already, and also smash that notification bell so that you will be the first one to be notified when we upload new videos. It takes a lot of time and effort to make these videos. Your subscriptions, likes, and shares are what inspire us to create more content. Therefore, please consider subscribing to our channel if you haven't already. And finally, thank you for watching until the end. We look forward to seeing you in our next video. Until then, stay safe and stay blessed.